All right, folks, good afternoon. I will call this meeting of the Mayor and Council work session to order. To start off, I want to say a couple of words. I know that everyone's probably aware of the police shooting incident we had yesterday that involved one of our officers, one of the Carrollton police officers, state trooper, as well as a Carroll County officer. I just got word a few minutes ago that our officer, who was shot twice, Chase Gordy, is soon to be released from the hospital, and I want to give the chief a couple of minutes to say a couple of words on this situation, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. Chief, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Chase, we just got word from his, the person, advocate at the hospital, saying that they are working on getting him out today. They're definitely going to get him out. We don't know how long. We know how that process is. All of us have had people in the hospital, so we don't know how long yet. We've had people reach out to us, hundreds of people, taking care of us, being good to us, talking to us, thanking us, just the appreciation of the community, the leaders. The governor called. While I was in seeing Chase, the governor called me. I put him on speakerphone and said, it's kind of funny because he said, Chief Mansour, this is Brian Kemp. And I said, Brian Kemp, holy crap, that's the governor. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Governor. And I'd gotten word that he may call. But anyway, I said, do you mind if I put you on speakerphone because I'm actually in the room with Chase and his family? He said, no problem at all. And he was real nice and cordial talking to Chase and to his family. So I appreciate that. So we've just gotten so much support, and I just want everybody to know how much that means to our officers in our department. Have gotten a limo to go get him. Jay Collins volunteered that for us, so we're going to send the limo to get him, and then we're going to escort him home, and we're going to escort him through the city and to his house in Carrollton. So there'll be a little bit of police activity, but it will be for a good thing, and it will be a happy event for her. For our officers in our department. And I'm going to talk a little bit more maybe at the meeting, but I just want everybody to know how much we appreciate it. And this is it's a hard day. Yesterday was a hard day for us. And watching the videos, watching the events unfold, watching everything, it shows you how some people are towards law enforcement and some people are towards public, and this wasn't a guy trying to get away from police. This was a guy that was hunting police, and knowing that there are people out there, it just makes it hard to know that these young men and women are out there trying to help us and is running towards the gunfire and is going to try to stop these people from hurting other people. And it just shows you the bravery that they have. So there's some other things I'd like to talk about in a little bit, but we're going to try to get this taken care of to get Chase home, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, and I'll give you that opportunity in the regular meeting. These are incredibly difficult times because so often, especially in the last year, we have run into situations where there has been, it's hard to describe it any other way, but a lack of respect for our law enforcement. And I think here in this community, and myself and this council and our senior staff have done everything that we can to show our officers that we appreciate the work that they do and we honor their commitment to our safety. And when the chief made that comment, it's one that I've thought of many times. These are people who put their life on the line, not knowing whether or not they're going to be asked to do it, but they run toward the gunfire. I'm running the other way. And so I just wanted to say a couple of words about that. I appreciate everything that they do. And it's in moments like this that we realize the gravity of the responsibility that they take on. So the chief has left the room, but the captain's back there, and I appreciate the work you guys do. Thank you. All right. I believe the councilman, there is and I'll get some, I'm not going to do it right now. I'll get some more information on this, but there is a GoFundMe for Chase and for his family, and we'll get some more information on that and talk about it maybe later in this session or maybe in the regular session. But let's go ahead and move on to our work session. First item on the agenda is going to be the mayor reappointment of Janice McGehee to the Cemetery Commission for a term beginning 4/1/21 through 3/31/24. If there are no objections to that, I'm going to place it on the consent agenda.
No
Item
objection.
number 2A2, appoint Doug Lang to the Historic Preservation Commission. If there are no objections to that, I'll make that consent too.
I don't have an objection to any of the appointments, but I do have a couple questions.
Okay. Who would you like to ask the question to? Ron?
That'd be fine.
Ron, come forward.
Good afternoon.
Ron, is it the governing body and the council who decides what commissions will exist?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. Is it this isn't planned, I'm just so sorry. Is it us who has the final say on who's on these committees? We make the appointments.
It is.
And in a sense, we appoint them to help us, right? Give us information, historic preservation. Maybe we're doing something downtown. We need them to vet some things, give us some information. So this is what I want to know, because it's changed over the years since I got on council. I like getting a recommendation from whether it's preservation or it's Main Street or P&Z. But what I don't understand is why are we getting this where it looks like it's already a done deal? Like it says, this person's getting appointed basically on the cover sheet, whereas, okay, here are the people, we make this recommendation, but here's the applications we have on file. So we would look at all the applications, and y'all would make a recommendation, but we would make the final decision. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Why when it's getting to us, it looks like, well, here you go, appoint this person. That's the way it appears anyway.
Yes, so,
And if I should ask someone else that, just let me know. If there's someone else,
I mean, I'll have some comments on it if we want to have
okay.
comments, but, I mean, do you want to address it, Ron, or?
I'll revert back.
Okay,
back
sure.
to you.
I've seen it done both ways, where, obviously the item says appoint Doug Lang to Historic Preservation. This has nothing to do with Doug Lang. We're just talking about process.
right.
I've seen it be more open-ended, but the way I view this is a recommendation coming from staff. They've drawn up the cover sheet and they've drawn up the motion. And I've asked that they make sure that they put all applications inside as the backup. So for me, it doesn't seem like one way or the other makes that much of a difference. If there is opposition to it, then we can take that up. Or if somebody wants to make some other motion, we could take that up. What were you suggesting? Does anybody else have any comments on it, though, council? Turn your mic. There you
I'll
go.
just say, yeah, it doesn't, I only see in the package, I only see the applications for those who would recommend it. So I think that may be kind of what the issue is.
So is
There
that
should
true,
be-
Ron?
There should be 3 applications in there. One should be for Michael Rickman.
It is important to me that all the applications end up in the backup material, but,
Yes.
but part of what goes on here is also that we have communicated this recommendation to the applicant, that they are the ones that are being, nominated by staff, and we've made sure that they can continue on with that term. So that's kind of how it gets to this stage, right?
That is correct.
And sometimes they wouldn't be continuing it. It would be a new person. And I just think it would make it extremely awkward if a particular name's already in there and we made a different decision. That would be one instance where it would be really awkward because the motion's already drawn up. And we do need to have the motion drawn up. And I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the way it's done right now, where it looks like it's a done deal. This is who's being appointed.
I could see
for
it working the
reappointment.
other way, too.
Because we do change them.
I could see where, you leave it open, you bring it to council, they pick somebody, and then that person says, I'm not gonna be able to do it now. Now I've thought about it, and now the term or something changed. You see what I mean? That would also be awkward. It feels like to me that this,
I'm assuming anybody that we're looking at the applications of has said they're willing to do it. Do we contact them again? And I don't want to draw this out too long. Do we contact them to say, hey, we're looking at these, this opening is coming up, and you're one of the ones being considered? If they put in if they put in 9 months ago or something like that?
In this particular situation, we did not, because all of the applications came in after the seats already became available. But typically, if there is an application that has been submitted prior to, then we would take it up with the HPC first.
Okay.
And they would make their recommendation and send it here. We wouldn't contact them.
Okay. Well, anyway, not to drag this out, but that's my concern. I don't know how we can discuss it at any other time in the future to see if the possibility of doing it differently or how everybody else feels about it.
okay, so there are no objections to this appointment, though?
No.
Okay, I'll make that consent too. A3, appoint Angelia O'Neill to the Historic Preservation Commission. If there are no objections, I'll make that consent 3.
No objection.
A4, to discuss butterballs. I'm going to delete this from the work session agenda. If there are no objections. All right, let's move on to B1. Bobby Elliott, RA, thank you, Ron. RA-02-20, rezoning request for 450 Edge Road, parcel number 014502500026. There'll also be a public hearing on this tonight. Go ahead.
LIT Acquisitions of Dallas, Texas is requesting to rezone the property from C2 medium density to I2 industrial medium density. They're looking to construct a 347,760 square foot warehouse and distribution facility. And the lot is 25.83 acres, and it's on the northwest corner of Liberty Road and Edge Road.
All right, is that going to be your presentation
Yes.
for the work session? All right, council, I'm sure there are some questions. Who is up first? Mr. Young, go ahead.
I notice in the site plan, our proposed site plan, they seem to rely heavily on the fact that they might get a traffic signal at Edge Road and Liberty Road in order to facilitate traffic flow. Talk to me about the fact that GDOT's still looking at a traffic signal for the eastbound on-off ramps to I-20 at Liberty Road and its proximity to this proposed traffic signal at Edge Road.
Yes. So I had some correspondence with the applicant, and the applicant is here this evening to answer any of your questions. But she indicated to me in an email this afternoon that they do exceed the space. There's actually no distance requirements in the driveway manuals that engineers use from the signaled intersection or proposed signaled intersection at Liberty to the off-ramp. So they do meet any requirements that they have from the proposed signal to the I-20 westbound signal. However, there's no other requirements that they have, so.
Well, okay, clarify that for me, Ron.
Sure.
Are you saying that, tell me that in plain terms. I don't want to give you my words. What are you saying about the signal? If
Yes.
they rely on the signal, is the signal a possibility?
It is. Yes, it is a possibility. So it's measured from signal to signal. And being that we don't have a signal at I-20 eastbound, we have one at I-20 westbound. That's a distance of 1,320 feet, or that's a requirement of 1,320 feet, and they exceed that distance based on an email that I received.
I'm not talking about westbound. I'm talking about eastbound. There is no signal there right now, but there's been plenty of discussion about a signal at that intersection. Eastbound off-ramp, eastbound on-ramp at Liberty Road. Or is that discussion totally gone from GDOT's
If this is
lexicon?
outside of your
I
scope,
was just going to say that I actually haven't been a part of those discussions, so I would have to defer back to Bobby.
Bobby just cut you a look.
Okay,
I'm just kidding. Hold on just a second. Bobby, do you have any comments on the light situation, just the traffic signal at both the ramp and at this proposed?
I haven't seen any correspondence from GDOT about a proposed signal at the eastbound off-ramp at Liberty and I-20.
Okay.
I know I've had about 500 requests about there need to be a signal there, but
And so those requests have been forwarded on to
Yes.
somebody, so there has been correspondence with GDOT about it.
we have forwarded those those complaints on, but now I haven't seen any kind of documentation that they're considering that.
If they do consider it, what happens?
Before or after this new light gets put in at Edge and Liberty?
Well, I'm just saying, this light, neither one exists, so we should consider how each one affects the other.
I would think the proposed light at Edge and Liberty would come into question if they indeed want to put a light at the eastbound ramp.
Does that answer your question? All right, Mr.
All right.
Carter, let's,
All right, question. I talked to the city manager, and city manager, I thought, told me that they said there would be no light put in at the intersection of Edge and Liberty.
Correct.
Absolutely no light. So there goes the light. Now they're relying on a light which we can't get.
All right.
How do we fix this?
Mr. Carter, hold on just a second. Tom, will you just expand on that just a little bit so we're real clear on what?
Yeah,
what
I
you just
called
said?
the District 7 engineer and asked him if they would permit a light there, and he said no.
Okay, that's our, that's the
GDOT District 7 engineer.
for 7, okay. All right, so
I know.
does that impact your presentation?
I'm sure it impacts the applicant's plans, and I'm not sure if it would impact my presentation
Okay,
per se.
all right, Mr. Carter, are you,
No, I got one other question. The package you were presenting to us on this variance, or this, yeah, not a variance, but this
Rezoning.
rezoning, is this the same one that planning and zoning looked at and
Yeah.
analyzed?
Great question. So there has been an addendum to the packets from what the Planning Commission received. The Planning Commission, as you saw on the cover letter, they gave a negative recommendation to the council on this. And after that, Bobby and myself, we got on the call with the applicants, and they wanted to revise some of the traffic recommendations in their traffic report. And they took into account, we kind of put our heads together, we tried to see what ways that this can be better improved from the plan that they presented to the Planning Commission. And that addendum, along with a revised letter of intent, was supplied to the council in their packets that would give a better idea. There's actually 5 of them here. It's a letter from March 24th, 5 different improvements that they're willing to make to the Liberty Road and Edge Road corridors.
So you're telling me that what we're looking at is not the same one that planning and zoning looked at and recommended denial 3-2? You're saying this is different?
The traffic, only
It is
only
not
the
the same
traffic.
one, because they recommended denial.
That's correct. Only the traffic portions are changed. Their plan to rezone and the zones that they're requesting to go to is the same. The
It
building
appears
is
to
the
me that if the plan changes, that planning and zoning really ought to have another look at it, so we can get their recommendation.
I am concerned that this may be before us prematurely. Is there a reason why this couldn't go back to planning and zoning?
There's no reason. The city council can very well remand back to the planning commission.
Okay, I'm gonna get some clarification from the city attorney in just a moment, but I'm a little concerned that the city council is being asked to look at information that is different than P and Z had to consider, and that P and Z voted to deny this. And if I carry this through, and I have a public hearing tonight, and then we vote, and let's just say that it fails, based on, even in part, that presentation to P and Z, this is not coming back for at least a year. And I would be concerned as the applicant, and I think that you should carry that information with you. Mr. City Attorney,
Yes, sir.
is in fact this permitted to go back to P and Z? Is it prematurely here?
I think you have the power to refer it back to P and Z to have them look at the study that was done subsequent to the time they looked at it the first time.
Okay. Does council have any different opinion about handling this item here in the work session? Because otherwise I'm going to skip it and we're going to take it up in the regular session and table it.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment.
ma'am. Go ahead.
Further, and I'll be perfectly honest, I have not made up my decision on this one way or another. And part of what kept me from, right, I wanted to hear the whole presentation today, but part of the frustration was I realized, I've talked to, let's see, I've talked to Bobby, I've talked to two of the commissioners that were no's, but liked the project. And I finished one today, went out and saw the property with the other one late Sunday. They were both no's, pretty much all having to do with traffic issues and where the truck's going to go and how this is all going to work and light or turnaround, all that. And they don't have this addendum. So some of that's tied into they made a decision on information that was different from us. I'm trying to get their opinion, say, well, you might want to read that addendum and this might be coming back. And so I really had a hard time because I had two of them say they would vote they liked the project, they would vote differently depending on having to do with that traffic issue and everything. And I was getting conflicting information on the traffic light. There can be a light, there can't be a light. And I want to see any of it though, I'd like to see it in writing. I really would, one way or the other. Yes, there can be, no, there can't be.
I think we just cleared up the light issue. There's no light.
All right, Mr. Young.
In their safety audit, they use GDOT 2017 traffic volume levels. I'm got to guess after all the traffic studies we've done, we might have more current traffic volume for Edge Road and Liberty Road to share with them to make that a little bit more realistic. 4 years ago is a long time and a lot of change.
And obviously, your boss
Yeah.
is Bobby, and he'll have access to that pond. Okay. Anybody got anything else? Because if not, I'm inclined to move on and in the regular session, return this to P and Z and table it for a month. Any objections to that? Okay, then let's move on.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
before
sir.
you move on for that, I agree that the proper action would be to refer it back to P and Z. And that is an action, so I don't know that you're really tabling it. You're just sending it back to P and Z.
So we'll take that action in the regular session, though.
Right.
I'm going to skip it here. And will that give you, let me just ask now, will that give you enough time to do any additional advertising, David, that needs to be done for this public hearing?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, we'll take that up in the regular session. All right, moving on to B2, VA-05-21, variance request for ServPro, parcel number 014702500019, Veterans Memorial Highway. There'll also be a public hearing on this tonight. Go ahead, Ron.
Yes. ServPro and their representative, Ricky Wilson, is requesting a variance from providing sidewalks of approximately 1,065 linear feet along Veterans Memorial Highway. As we know, we require sidewalks for all developments, all new developments, all developments that need to go through the board process, and that do not need to go through the board process. And Veterans Memorial Highway doesn't have any sidewalks. There's none in the Douglas County portion. This would be a sidewalk from nowhere to nowhere, essentially. It doesn't connect to any other networks or sidewalk or walkability networks that we have. So the applicant is requesting a variance from supplying that item.
All right, council, does anyone have any questions?
Oh, Ron, let me ask you a
Mr.
question.
Montahan.
Why do we require sidewalks to be included in all new developments? What's the purpose of that?
To improve walkability in the city and less auto reliance.
So in the event where we have a sidewalk that leads to nowhere, does that relieve the taxpayer from eventually having to install sidewalks at some point in the future?
Well, if there is a walkability plan that's in motion or that the governing body has or the city staff have that they're willing to implement in this general vicinity, then the taxpayer would be on the hook for that. Unless there's grants, of course, or any other outside funding.
Well, let me just say, my view of why we require sidewalks or for new development to include sidewalks is to relieve the tax burden, the burden on the taxpayer for the eventual plan of infilling those sidewalks at some point in time. So, personally, well, I won't get into how I'm going to vote just now. But I just think the notion that there's not a walkability plan, it seems like the ordinance itself is the walkability plan. It's to establish sidewalks throughout the city, and to the extent that we can do so without putting that burden on the taxpayer, that would be the benefit for the council. I mean, that's just my view, though, but maybe
All
different.
right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I
Ms.
just.
McPherson?
Thank you. You know how business friendly I am. I don't like to overly burden businesses, that sort of thing, have regulations we don't need that make no sense or whatever. At the same time, if you're over there near Tyson Road, I'm trying to see exactly where it is. You live in Ashley Place, maybe you're coming out towards 78. There's a bar and grill that's opening up over in that area. If we don't require them now, when do they get done over there for anybody to walk or get on their bike and come down that part of the city? So my hope, and not just because I'm a walker and I get out on bikes with my grandsons, this sort of thing, I'm just thinking about in general, if that's our goal in the city, to have it so you can get out on any of our roads and get to other places other than getting in a car, then we've either got to say, you put them in now, or if you have some plan for how you lock anybody into doing it later when we get more buildings, I want to hear it. Or number two, we basically say, we're going to put them all in eventually. And I don't know that that's what we want to do. That's why in the neighborhoods, when they're building the house, they have to put the sidewalk in front of the house. And I'm in a neighborhood almost every day where I go, well, doggone it, they didn't put any sidewalks in. So a kid can't even come out of their house and get on their own street and go anywhere safely, especially including your neighborhood. You know, I was looking, there are neighborhoods like no sidewalks whatsoever. They can't go down with their big wheel, anything else. So that's it. If you've got another plan on how they don't have to do it now, but we can lock them into doing it later, then let me know. Otherwise, I struggle with just saying, let's not do them, because we know we want them long-term.
Okay, anybody else? All right, as I indicated, Mr. Barber, you got to wave.
We had this kind of conversation about Popeyes, and I've thought about it since then, and when Bobby approached me about this, my first thought was why we do not approve this with a condition that at any point in the future, we can come back to the owner and require the installation of the sidewalk. And I'd like David to comment on whether that's appropriate, because I think that fits here. It doesn't seem something practical or whatever to require it today, but to not require it, not to ever be able to require it, doesn't seem to be in the city's best interest. So if we hold that until some point in the future, then we require it later when it's appropriate, when it
All right.
actually is practical.
Yeah, and
David?
Tom asked me that question. I think it is feasible to either provide a temporary variance for some set period of time that has to be renewed periodically, or to place some sort of condition on the grant of the variance that will allow the city to come back at some later date and say that now that the sidewalk plan is coming into place in your area, that you are going to be required to put in a sidewalk and make that binding upon them.
So could we place such a condition tonight if we were inclined to do that?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm thinking about the public hearing piece,
Right.
and, we talked a little bit about that. I'll just make a couple of comments. We talked a little bit about that, and just given what I have learned over the years in this job and when I had a different chair, it seems to me that a lot of things fall through the crack, and I am less inclined to go down that road. However, we'll take it up in the next session. Mr. Young, you have anything? No. Usually when you take them glasses off, that means you're ready to start talking.
Mayor, may I
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question?
Mr. Montahan.
David, I think my concern with that would be, what would be the city's remedy if the owner or the then owner at that time refuses? The permits have already been issued, the building is built, business is being done.
our remedy, and before I get to that remedy, your point is valid, that those are the type of things that can fall through the cracks over this period of 5 years that everybody's gone and nobody remembers it. But to answer your question, our remedy, if we have placed a specific condition that has been adopted in an ordinance is really an action of the council and is law. And if they are violating the law, we have the ability to cite them for violating our ordinances. I would think also that the zoning ordinance does provide that there is a remedy of injunction for anybody who is not complying with the zoning ordinance. So, I mean, is it going to be a completely simple, easy remedy? No, but there'll be some there if we really want to make the point that we want a sidewalk built.
Okay. You good?
Fair enough.
All right, everybody good on this one? All right, so this is going to have a public hearing, so I'm going to move on. Let's go to B3, VA-04-21, which is a variance request for Winchester Real Estate Investment Company, parcel number V07-0140003. There'll also be a public hearing on this one tonight. Go ahead, Ron.
Winchester Real Estate Investment Company is requesting a variance to encroach into the city's 75-foot impervious buffer by 29,895 square feet and 50-foot stream buffer by 21,809 square feet. The variances are necessitated by the development of Phase 1 of the Avamore mixed-use project in the same for these buildings to be in the same locations that were on the concept plan. So they're coming before us because they did find a stream out there, and the stream cuts, it's an east-west cut across the property, and they're looking to not only encroach into that stream area, but they're also going to need to go into the 25-foot state buffers as well. So they have applied to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and EPD in order to do so, and that's by 17,500 and some odd square feet.
So right now, what's before us is the city's additional 25-foot buffer outside of the state's buffer?
Yes,
Is that correct?
and the 75-foot buffer, the impervious
In
buffer.
addition to
Yes.
also that buffer. So we have a little history of how we ended up with that 25-foot buffer, but let me just see if any council has any questions first. Mr. Young.
Looking at the map of the buildings, I think using the number of square feet of encroachment is a little misleading because it shows that on some of these buildings, it completely crosses all of the encroachments and goes into the stream encroachment. It crosses the impervious encroachment completely. It crosses the state and the city encroachments, and then into the stream buffer encroachment. Some of the buildings are, why does that building have to be there? We should be talking about how many feet, how many, not square feet, but linear feet they're going to go into the buffer. And in this case, they're going to completely wipe out the buffer in certain areas.
Do you have any comments on that? Would it be appropriate to talk with the applicant at this time, David, or not? We don't
You've got the right to ask
typically-
them questions.
So would that be a better question for the applicant?
It would.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Mr. Davis, would you come up here? Do y'all have a handheld? We're gonna have 3 gentlemen up there, so let somebody hold one. Do you understand the question?
Yes, sir, and
Mr. Young?
I'm gonna let the engineer answer it. I just want to say thanks. Good to see y'all again.
Okay.
Hunter's gonna answer your questions, and if we can't figure it out today, we'll figure it out next time.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hunter,
Mr. Mayor, you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm Hunter Hyde. I'm with CHA Consulting, civil engineer for Mr. Davis in Winchester. And I'm not sure if we can do it now or tonight, but we do have some plans that would be good to pull up on the screens. It might be helpful.
Let's
to
ask the
have
clerk
a
to pull them
visual.
up. You mean the visual that shows the,
The area we're talking about, yes,
that's
sir.
called, what's that? It's the encroachment map or image.
Correct.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
And I'm looking at building 1238.0 on the first page of the encroachment plan.
All right, hang on just a second while it comes up.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So there's several things I want to point out on this, and I don't want to take up all of our time, but would you mind scrolling down maybe just a little bit towards the highway? Thank you. Perfect. So as was mentioned, all the buildings that you see and the layout of the roads, that's all exactly per the approved master plan. So we haven't tried to modify that. We took that and we continued our due diligence on the property, which included an environmental assessment of the entire 200-plus acres, including all of the state waters and the streams that you see a portion of them here, certainly not all of them. There's thousands of linear feet of stream on this property. What you do see highlighted in blue is the portion of stream that we are proposing to impact. And as Ron mentioned, we've applied to the state EPD and the U.S. Corps of Engineers for the respective approvals we need for that impact. That represents 290 linear feet of stream. That whole stream segment is intermittent stream, so it only flows for a portion of the year. It was one of those where our environmental engineer went out twice to evaluate it because it was right there on the line of, is it really even classified as a stream? It looks like a drainage ditch when you look at it. Off the page that's really actually the west, the stream becomes a perennial stream, so it flows at all times of the year, but we're several hundred feet away from where that starts. So this is, in environmental terms, in state waters terms, this is, how do you say it? It's the least valuable of the streams on the property in terms of if you looked at all the stream linear feet on the whole property. We have extreme topographic relief on this property. There is, just from the highway right-of-way to where we start our impact is about 70 feet of fall. That's consistent across the whole property. So it's a very challenging site to design. And even with that, and you can't see all of it here, but there are retaining walls on the backs of those buildings. There's an overlook that is in the area that's hatched red. That's the impervious buffer. So it's really overlooking. It's kind of overhanging what's going to be a water feature there. So yes, we're encroaching into it, but that's going to be a pedestrian amenity in that area. And then, we need that area for stormwater detention. So it's going to serve really two purposes. It's going to be an attractive feature for the mixed-use development, but from a technical standpoint, we need it to provide the volume that we need for stormwater detention to meet the stormwater ordinance. We also are preserving the Goldworth Farm property, which you see right in kind of the middle of the page here, the square, if you will. So if you just look at that property and you look at where the blue hatched area is, that's a really tight area there. So there's very little that we can, we're falling off in terms of topography there. So there's no feasible way to completely avoid that stream segment for realizing all the components of our master plan that's been approved. Again, in the grand scheme of this property, we consider this to be a pretty minor encroachment when we look at the whole value of all the environmental and state water components of the property. I'm sorry, did I answer the question? I just want to make sure I said all of that.
Okay. Mr. Young?
The biggest offender is this one building.
You see the building he's referencing?
This all is one building.
Right. It is.
So is there another feasible location for that building?
Not to achieve that happens to be a combination of office and restaurant space, and not to achieve the space the square footage that we got approved on the master plan.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
Mr. Montahan.
So just about that building, though, it looks to me like, so you're going to basically pond that intermittent stream. So even if that building isn't built, you're still going to pond that stream anyway. So there's not
Right.
going to be stream where that building would be, right? If that makes sense.
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so I guess my point is, regardless of the existence of the building, you're going to need this variance anyway to pond that stream.
Thank you. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
and I guess my issue with this, and this might be a question for staff, is that this I've never seen a variance, cumulative variance from multiple different points of the stream. And I've never, maybe that's the way the Army Corps of Engineers or EPD does it. But in my experience, you basically, just by my rough count, looks like you have 7 or 8 different variance applications here, not just one. And so, I mean, as a councilman or as a governing body, let's say, for example, the variance that's requested for the pond, let's say council doesn't agree with that. But the way this application currently is, we have to nix all the potential variances in order to, if we had an objection to that one stream. And so I think that's my issue, is that you have 7 or 8 different variances here when instead of just one, cumulative. And that also makes it difficult when you look at the gross square feet that's being asked to be the variance. Again, I think it should have been, variance A, and then, 20, looks like maybe 30 linear feet variance on the very top up there on the back side of the property, and then kind of go through each one. I think that's my issue, at least.
So I look at this as really one variance because of chiefly the fact that this is one property, it's one section out of our code. If this was multiple different sections, or maybe just one, or multiple lots here instead of just one, then I could definitely see that. And who's to really say, and this is just a hypothetical, but, and who's to say where we draw the line for one variance versus another variance versus a different one, because they are all kind of squeezed together for one property, really, and for one phase of the development. This is for the whole entire first phase.
Right. Ron, I think from what I'm saying, though, and I see where you're coming from, but my thing is, theoretically, council could approve, 3 of these encroachments and deny 4 of them. But the way this application is, we have to deny all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they're not, unless we go through and itemize each individual one, which I think that should have been done at staff level. Staff should have said, variance A. If you can scroll up, Alyssa, for me.
I think you could still do
I
that.
think you can say, well, this is variance A, so we approve this variance, but we're denying this variance, variance C, just for example. But I can't do that. I mean, I guess I could parse through it right here,
Yeah.
but, seems like that's
I understand your concern.
something that maybe staff could have cleaned up prior to, and so makes it much easier for
I think it's really
council.
up to the applicant and how they wish their application to be reviewed.
All right, let me
Okay.
let
Fair
the city manager weigh in for just a second.
So the applicant could say to us tonight, this is an all or nothing application, which that would simplify that issue. But the blue, the green, and the pink are different issues, potentially. So it's really more than 7 or 8, potentially, if you want to just break it into a whole bunch of pieces. And you could, for instance, say that we'll approve all the variances in the outer 25 feet, and that's it. Or, we'll only approve the variance at the closest to 61 if the state also approves that variance. Or something. I mean, you can make this as complicated as you want to. From the standpoint of the city, what we've tried to do because of past indiscretions is observe this, multiple buffer issue where we don't allow impervious construction in that outside band, but that's our buffer and we can vary it.
Right.
Right? The middle one is a more serious variance to me. But in the case of this application, is the benefit that we get from this construction worth allowing construction in this particular stream, using that word as has been described here, is it worth it? You know, staff, I think, is recommending this,
That's correct.
right?
Yep.
The piece up at the top, though, to me, is totally a state issue. And my recommendation to you is that we go with the state. If the state doesn't allow that pond, then I think there's a whole lot of engineering that's gonna have to get done. Is that a safe bet? So really, what we do at the top doesn't matter if the state doesn't allow it. So if you want to do some kind of conditional approval on the whole thing, that would be the simplest to me. You know, we approve it on the condition that the state approves the pond issue, because that blue variance is not our decision at all.
So
Right.
let me ask you this. There's already a condition similar to that, but it refers to the Army Corps of Engineers inside the packet. Is that the same one you're talking about? Because actually I think that is something that we could look at. Because remember, my understanding is this doesn't move forward if these other variances aren't approved, and we're only talking about our 25-foot, which is the least concern.
225.
225s.
The green and the pink.
Okay, the green and the pink. But even if we vary, if the state doesn't, they can't move forward.
If he doesn't have
like
the
this.
blue, he doesn't have
I understand.
he doesn't have a workable plan.
But is the condition that's already in the packet, is that what Tom is talking about? The one, because here it says U.S. Army Corps of Engineer.
Yes.
Is that gonna be the
That is
same?
correct. It is the same.
Okay, very good. All right,
Yeah, I
Mr.
call
Young,
it the state, but yeah.
that's fine.
Should we reverse the process and have the state look at this first and give approval before we look at our piece?
Personally, I'm okay with the condition that we will conditionally approve it, subject to the state. If the state does it, then they'll move on. If the state does not, then ours fails as well. I would be, at this stage, I mean, I'm assuming time has got to be of some value. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, I can't overthink this thing. I don't really have any problem with our buffer because I think ours is rather excessive anyway. I have never understood why we require so much more than the state does. The Army Corps of Engineers, I just spent some time on their property. They're pretty strict with things. And for me, it seems a little easier, unless somebody can tell me what great hazard this is going to cause in this intermittent that sometimes has water and doesn't, but there's going to be a pond there, and tell me how it's a hazard ecologically, you know, somewhere in this area, then I don't see why we don't just defer and let the state. They have to say, you know, they have to say something about that buffer that's real close.
Okay, so this is coming back for a public hearing tonight anyway, so if somebody has that information, if somebody speaks for or against this and has that information. Mr. Carter, do you have anything? You're the only one that hadn't spoke yet.
Nope.
All right,
Fine.
just didn't know if you wanted to join the party. Let me address.
I'm doing a lot of listening.
Just for a second, Ms. McPherson, well, I just meant on that issue. There are reasons why we have that 25, and we'll talk about it in a different setting, but I agree with you in principle that it does seem excessive on our part, but I'll tell you why when we're not in this session. Does anybody have anything else?
Mr. Mayor, just to add just that last
Go ahead.
point there. So we have applied to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. If I didn't mention that, I apologize. In the linear footage of stream that we've applied for is under their nationwide permit, and it's within their allowable disturbance. So our exact linear footage is 290 linear feet, and so that's allowable underneath that permit. We've received comments from them, and they've been minor in nature. So we're confident that we're going to get that approval. We don't have it in hand yet. I wish we already did, but we don't. But our hope is that if we can, of course, have your support this evening, that it'll all kind of coincide together, that we'll get the Corps approval, state EPD buffer approval, and then we hope the city
Okay,
buffer.
well, I appreciate that information. You're suggesting to me that this variance you've asked for from the Army Corps of Engineers is within the scope of variances that they would typically allow?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you. Let's move back to Ron here. Ron, do you have anything to add before I move on?
No.
On this one? Okay. Any other council members have any questions or comments? Okay, we'll bring it back for a public hearing. Let's go to B4. Revision to grass height restriction as pertaining to the nuisance code for the city of Villa Rica. Mr. Elliott. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I hope that this one is a little less complicated.
Raise your mic for me.
We have currently in our nuisance ordinance, on developed lots, the height restriction before code enforcement's called is 4 inches. And on the undeveloped lots, it's 8 inches. Our code enforcement personnel during summertime spend just about all of their time chasing down grass complaints. Your neighbors complaining about neighbors' grass, and you know, if you miss one small shower and during the course of a week, you're in violation. The recommendation is to raise that requirement from 4 inches to 8 inches in on a subdivision lot with a home on it, and up to from 8 to 12 inches on undeveloped lots. I think that would be a very good solution for what we've got, because it takes tons of manpower. We've got code enforcement right now doing a proactive property maintenance. We've got like 50 cases open right now. So
Okay, let's see if I can make this easy. Council, you have any questions? All right, I'm gonna make this consent item C4. There are no objections.
No objection.
thank
It's
you, sir.
easy, Bobby. It's easy. Thank you. And I'm ready to go. Let's get on down to B6. We'll take up B5 in the regular session. That'll be tabled, and I'll address that when we get to the regular session. All right, B6, amendment to Article 3 to the Villa Rica zoning ordinance. Mr. Montesinos, come on down.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is a recommendation to make a text amendment to the single-family attached district in our zoning ordinance. The model ordinance that I used when I drafted the revised zoning ordinance did not have a separate category for single-family detached. Single-family attached, which would be townhouses or condominium-style development. We had one in the Unified Development Code, which was called RT, Residential Townhouse. And so when I crafted the SFA, I tried to combine, the best of both worlds with respect to the existing RT and with a multifamily type of hybrid. What resulted from that was that when we tried to apply the single-family attached district to development that was being proposed, we found a bunch of different shortcomings or areas that didn't quite jive with what the intention was that we were trying to accomplish. Specifically with respect to setbacks between buildings and the property line, setbacks between buildings and other buildings on the property, and more significantly, the issue that we have found in the application of SFA to current development is a change in the development paradigm whereby corporate developers are building a for-rent unit in a single-family attached style of development. In other words, you're not getting what we traditionally would see as a fee simple development where the people own the parcel or sub-parcel or even the footprint of the building or the unit they occupy. But instead, you're seeing more of a multifamily approach where a corporate entity owns the entire property and there are no individual parcels within that property. So in triangulating the single-family attached, which was really intended to address a fee simple type of structure, it was not addressing the larger corporate type of multifamily development. And so we're recommending these changes with respect to the setbacks, separation between buildings, as articulated in the revision.
All right, council, does anyone have any questions on this?
I do. Chris, it looks like from the newspaper notice that's in the packet, it noted that the public hearings for this would be before the Planning Commission on April 6th, and then it says City Council on May 11th. So is that, it's just like an early presentation, or are we going to hear this again on May 11th?
I think that the original plan was to bring this to the council at this meeting tonight, but if the public notice was for the next meeting, then I would say that this would be, we'll reclassify this as a initial presentation in order to meet the public notice requirements.
Right, so this is information only because there's also no public hearing noted on here, and this is clearly an item that requires a public hearing.
That's correct.
And I want it on the agenda, so when there is a public hearing, let's make sure we have it on the agenda. Anybody else have anything? And thank you for that, because I had not seen the notice. Nobody else? All right. Thank you, Chris. We'll take this up. We'll introduce it again tonight, but just for information only.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's go to B6. Oh, I'm sorry. That was B6. All right, B7. Temple Street one-way conversion concept video. That's Mr. Montesinos as well.
Yes, and
Go
I'm
ahead.
really very excited about this. I was approached about 4 weeks ago after we did the presentation on the downtown concept for the LCI to do something a little more detailed and more adaptive to the actual environment downtown Temple Street. Specifically, there was an elevation differential between Main Street and Temple Street by anywhere from 2 to 6 feet in elevation. So what I did was I came up with the concept based on a sketch that Tom and I drew on a piece of torn out paper that basically said building, road, grass, parking. It was very elementary, and came up and basically evolved this into a more scaled representation of what could be with respect to blending some of the LCI concept elements with the elevation differences in the Temple Street corridor. And I've put together a 3-minute conceptual rendering, which I'm very pleased with the way it's turned out. So,
How many minutes did you say?
3 minutes.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
Volume?
3 minutes just to walk down Temple Street, Mayor.
You can volume on that.
Will there be any sound?
There should be. We're having some technical difficulties. All right. We'll see if the thing's not muted. Three minutes and 20 seconds.
There you go.
You guys already have a lot on the agenda. We should have popcorn or something.
Okay. So you can see the elevation changes on the left-hand side, the differentiation between the pedestrian parking and roadway zone by the different uses of materials. We've got sort of a centerpiece, which is the highest elevation, wider sidewalks for outdoor dining, some public art, and the expansion of a small parklet that's at the end of North Candler and Temple Street. And this kind of goes into an aerial presentation of what that looks like. The gold miner statue, which we currently have in storage, is part of the Gold Miners Park. You've got the ADA accessible ramps and the central staircase, which we've kind of created a more of a public stage on. Berry Plaza, which was part of the LCI concept, minus the pedestrian bridge. And then we look at sort of a before and after of current conditions versus conceptual renderings. addition of trees and streetlights makes quite the difference. The expansion of sidewalks. And that's about it.
All right, very nice. Go ahead. Is that all you want to do is present that tonight? I appreciate it. I think you did good work on that. This has been something that we've all talked about for a while. I mean, you added a lot more imagery than I anticipated, but the idea of the one-way has long been advocated here, and I think you did a good job on that, and I appreciate it. It gives everybody a perspective of what it might look
Thank
like
you.
over there.
That was a request.
Does anybody
on
have
the-
any questions? I'm sorry. Does
Sorry.
anybody have any questions or comments for Chris?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Mr. Montan.
And this is secondhand information, Chris, but I've always heard that the police department did have a preference on which direction the potential one-way was supposed to go. I don't know, did you guys talk to the police department about?
I am aware of what their concerns are with respect to the easier egress and ingress to the access to the station itself, being that the one-way be the existing, eastbound.
Okay.
The recommendation that's come to us from various sources is to convert it to a westbound only
Okay.
lane, and that's what we depicted in the concept design.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Young?
One-way Temple Street has been a key part of almost every study we've had done in Villa Rica, starting back in RSVP, all the way through, and all of the comments support that. I would really like to see City Council move forward with a decision on this as soon as possible.
I second that.
We'll be taking that up soon. At the same time, we probably do need to consider a name change on that street. That's something we should probably consider as well. Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, Captain. C1, approval of items for auction. Captain Keith Shaddix. And sir, if you got 20 seconds to tell us about which way you prefer that street to be, you can do that or you can skip it.
I'll skip that.
All right, go ahead.
This is simply evidence, things that were in the evidence room that are no longer needed for court, that we can't find the owners, or it's stuff that we can't give back to the criminals because we don't want them to profit from their crimes. So we're asking your permission to sell it at public auction.
All right, council, any questions?
Yeah, one Allen wrench? You really have one Allen wrench?
Honestly, sir, I looked at the list. I think that's maybe it's item one. I'm not sure. Is
It's
it
the
just
very
one?
first item that caught my eyes, and why would you have an Allen wrench?
I don't know. She listed all the tools together. We put them. So when we do them at auction, it won't be sold one Allen wrench. It'll be done in lots.
I was thinking more about
Like
the
everything-
crowbars and machetes. I was interested in those.
Everything that comes in a
So
box.
stuff.
All right, if there are no objections, I'm gonna make this consent 5.
No objection.
All right, thank you, Captain. All right, moving on. D1, Economic Development, replace an existing member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau Board. Ms. Sharon. Oh, I didn't know, what happened to your leg?
I messed up the tendon in my
Okay, pull that mic down a little bit. There you
Here,
go.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, take my glasses off. Crap. So, where I left it. Okay, so, we just got the CBB board started, so we're working out some kinks. Debbie Hohenstein, initially thought she'd be able to remain on the board, but because of a lot of professional and personal, issues that she, is working on, asked that she be replaced. We had been talking to Candy Wilson about being on the board, and so spoke with her, and she was still interested, and it would keep keep us, we still have the hoteliers, but it would also keep having a different business, and a bank would be perfect for the CVB. So Debbie is resigning due to personal and professional reasons, and staff recommends replacing CVB board member Debbie Hohenstein with Candy Wilson of Synovus Bank of Villa Rica.
Well, let me ask you a question. Were there other applicants?
I know we didn't even put out applications for the initial board. Tom and I, just talked about who would fit well with the CVB board and the members that we have now.
Well, let me say up front, I don't know Candy Wilson. Maybe I do. That name sounds a little familiar.
She's the manager at Synovus.
But I don't even see an application in here for her.
Yeah, no, we didn't take any applications. We just discussed it amongst me, Tom, Janet, and we know her. Janet, I know her. She's on one of the boards, Economic Vitality. And with economic development and tourism going hand in hand, I thought it would be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't doubt that that would be a good fit, but I must say to you that I want, and I have said, and we've all said, that we want these to be publicized. We want people to have an opportunity to apply, and we want to see an application. I had a council member call me last night or the night before and asked me to make an appointment. And I said to that person, I mean, I won't say what we talked about, but I said that person still needs to put in an application. Everybody has to put in an application. I don't think we should consider, now I'll let council weigh in, but I don't think we should consider these without the applications, at least from the person being nominated. Anybody have any questions?
I would ditto that, but I think I understand what y'all are trying to do, because our emphasis was what we had before.
It wasn't working.
It not only wasn't working, it wasn't even appropriate
Right.
for the people that, in a sense, are going to spend hotel motel tax, and that we needed to have representatives from different facets, but people who, in a sense, had skin in the game.
Right.
In other words, they have an interest, and maybe they're part of the hotel industry where they pay that tax.
Right.
So they care about it being spent correctly. But I would also say, yeah, I still want to know who it is, because in the end, we're still saying, yes, we vote to appoint somebody and all we got is a name. So I agree on that aspect, that we still want to find out who they are. And
Well, and I do like the targeted piece. We've talked about that before, but
Yeah.
Debbie is real estate, and this lady is in banking. I don't know who it is, so those didn't seem to me to be a like exchange. I would have possibly even thought of that then, but either way, we still need an application. I need to see some background, some information about them, because the governing body is going to take a vote and then appoint that person to a board, and I'd like to at least know something about them.
And the reason I didn't, we didn't have applications from the initial, board, so that's one of the main reasons too, that we didn't even.
Well, let's get one for that, and we'll table this off to the next month, okay?
Okay.
Does anybody have any objections to doing that in the session?
I don't have any issue with tabling it. I would just say that I think we need to be careful, because this board has those where we want folks to have a certain background, so we
Right.
don't want to just put a general, APB out there for applicants. It does need to be tailored to kind of the focus of this board, kind of like we do with DDA.
Well, what would you be
and-
looking for at this time to replace a real estate person?
I don't have another real estate person that I know well. You know what I mean? Another reason I wanted Candy is when Carl rolls off, she has the financial background to step in and also, be the treasurer and know what to do.
That's fair. Do you think you can get an application for us before we get to the regular session tonight? If you can, we'll see, but I want an application in the file.
And Sharon,
Okay.
also, if I can ask, what's the composition of the board now? How many hotelers do you have? How many?
We have.
industries are represented?
We have 3 hotels, the Holiday Inn, the Days Inn, and the Comfort Suites. Carl is our CPA and treasurer. Our restaurant is on Court on Main, Melissa Garrett, and we have Parks and Rec, Tracy Ivy.
Okay.
So we kind of tried to get hit on the industries that would understand tourism, that would benefit from tourism, and then still have a business person that could come in with a different perspective, right? So I've never put together a CVB board before. I've always had them, I've come in and they've been established. So this is the first board that I'm actually like physically trying to get together.
Well, and it sounds like you've got a pretty good diverse group of professionals and business people on that, so.
And the other reason we wanted to get her, and we have training scheduled for the 22nd of April, because they really needed training, wanted training. So we have CVB board training a professional coming in for the day to give them the training that they need to know how to function as a proper board and everything.
Okay, see if you can get that application for us, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Let's move on to D2, 2021 Pine Mountain Gold Museum Staff Training. Wesley, come on up. Go ahead.
The purpose of this training is to develop and expand our contacts in the community, especially with Carroll County and Carrollton in particular. Everything that we do with tourism is linked with the people around us, and so this is helping us build networks and things of that nature. It supports tourism, it supports economic development, which is our department, and it helps us with our mission statement. We've already started, I have already started attending the classes, so we're coming to this kind of halfway through the stream. The request here, or the recommendation here would be to fund this out of the general fund with the expectation that I would finish the remaining classes.
Hang on, is that microphone on?
Is this the
I think some of these may need to be adjusted up a little bit. I'm not hard of hearing, and I don't hear it in here. Okay, go ahead. All right, council, does anybody have any questions for Wesley?
I do.
Ms.
And
McPherson?
this one will also play into Main Street and everything else, and Sarah may be the one to answer this. Did we remove all training from the budget because of COVID? I'm trying to remember. Because as I recall, when I reviewed all this last Thursday, these weren't budgeted, but we always budget training. And my second question, which is also, if you answer it now, I'm sure it will probably apply to Main Street too, is that we're asking to okay it. It's usually budgeted, but it shows not budgeted on the street, on the sheets, but most of the training is already completed. Am I missing something?
So most of the departments did have education and training and travel budgeted. However, when the budget was passed, several departments, one of the requests from council was to remove education and training from several departments. Main Street, partial, Pine Mountain, HR, so that's why they're coming to you today.
Remove or reduce? Because I know at one time, Pine Mountain wasn't even operating, right? So we're like, well, why send people to training when we don't even know if we're going to open this year? Was that,
So
as
Main
I
Street, it
recall?
was completely removed, HR was completely removed, and I think for Wesley, it was just the travel piece that was removed. Y'all did leave some in his actual education line, so his is partial.
Okay, so let me go back and refresh everybody's memory then. We removed these items from the budget and moved them over to the contingency for the purpose of evaluating the situation at the time that
That's
the
right.
training was going to come up. Then we would decide if we would go ahead and approve it. So the money is in a sense budgeted, but it's over in the contingency fund, subject to the council approving it on a case-by-case basis, which is what we're doing here tonight.
Thank you. I recall that now that we did do it. It's sitting there. But because of COVID, we just didn't know what was going to happen, whether people are going to be getting on tour buses and going places. Okay.
Any other
So if this is
questions?
approved, I'll bring a budget amendment next time to take it out of contingency and move it back to the departments.
And in all these cases, most of the training is already done. It appeared on what I read.
Yeah, address that. I hadn't heard that.
I think some of it was, there are, some of these departments have required trainings. And so there's, depending on how many courses they have to complete within the year for certain hours, I think there were limited classes on what could be done. So through discussion with city manager, it was decided to go ahead and take those classes because we couldn't.
Okay, and I think we probably should have discussed discretionary training when we made those budget changes, but that's okay. So the ones that were required are the ones that have been done. Mr. Carter?
We are talking about $445 here, aren't we? That's what it says on this list.
Yes.
Okay, this is a lot of conversation
Wow.
over $445.
Oh, my goodness.
$445.
Okay, if there are no objections, I'm going to make this consent number 6.
I did have one other question. Is there,
Go ahead.
is there not required training that's already been done prior to us approving it? In other words, I understand that certain departments, you have to have so many hours, as you said. Is there also training? Because part of the reason it went into contingency is so that we could oversee as it went out as to whether we thought, yes, we need to go ahead and do that, things are open back up, people are traveling or whatever.
All right, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's maybe, Sarah, help me, 6 people doing this? 4, 5?
Maybe 5.
So this is not a required certification kind of thing. This is leadership, Carol.
Her question, though,
Right.
is whether or not any discretionary training.
Yeah, this is discretionary.
With this one, but has already been done that hasn't been approved by council. That's her question.
Yeah, this,
Yes.
is this the only person in the bucket of contingency?
Shannon and Main Street.
Oh, yeah, Shannon and Main Street's going to this also.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
All right. Does that answer your question? We may need to look at that, but, okay. For now, I want to move on, though. Thank you, Wesley. Are you doing this next? No. All right. So you're on the consent agenda. Let's move on to number 3, D3, Main Street, 2021 Main Street staff training. And before you start, let me just say, everybody who has a microphone in here, turn your microphone off unless you're talking, because I'm hearing you all louder than I am the people standing there. And I'm sure the same thing's going on at home. All right, go ahead.
The Villa Rica Main Street staff is required by the Department of Community Affairs to do a minimum of 30 hours of training every year to keep our accreditation. During COVID restrictions, most of Main Street's training was virtual. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs, who oversees the Georgia Main Street programs, they don't have a set schedule for 21. They're still working through coming back from COVID. Like most entities, the Georgia Department of Community Affairs is having to create opportunities for training, whether that be virtual or in person. They're still deciding on in-person training for 21. The classes below are what the staff has participated in currently or future training. One of the ones you mentioned is my Main Street coordinator is currently participating in Carroll County Leadership Academy. That class is $295. We've already participated in a virtual conference with the Main Street program of Missouri and the Georgia Main Street because we have to sign up early for these trainings to get the early bird discount. That's what we try to do.
Okay.
So we went ahead and signed up because $50 versus $100 is saving the city money. I am a member of the Georgia Economic Development Association. They are going to hold their spring conference this year in person. Those items are listed below. I did attach where the city manager has signed off on all of our trainings thus far. And there could be more trainings. I just don't know what they are this time because they haven't announced.
Okay. So this item here, though, is in an amount of $1,633.26. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any questions for Janet? If not, and no objections, I'm going to make this consent number 7.
Yeah, real quick question.
Go ahead.
So they don't have, just in a nutshell, so I make sure I understand, they don't, because of the way things were, Main Street, except, or what at the state level oversees all of y'all?
Georgia Department of Community Affairs.
Okay, Community Affairs. They don't have a set schedule of training, so do y'all have to say, hey, will you count the chamber's leadership? Do you have to ask them that?
They always have approved that.
Okay,
'Cause I
so
took it
there's-
in 16.
So in a sense, you could, not that they had to be made up, but you had to find things that would count and qualify to keep that accreditation.
Specifically for COVID, yes.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Okay. All right, let's move on to D4, 2021 Community Development Grant Disbursement, Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace Festival. Go ahead.
The Thomas A. Dorsey Board has applied for the Community Development Grant. As you know, this is a budgeted item. We recently approved the Taste of Villa Rica for their event. The Thomas A. Dorsey Festival will be one day this year, which is Saturday, June the 26th. They are requesting $10,000 for sound and lighting, their fireworks, and other logistical stuff they will need to put this event on. This is normally a 2-day event.
What is our total fund for this?
We have a total budget for $20,000. We've given away nearly $7,000 to Taste of Villa Rica, and the board, Thomas A. Dorsey Board, is asking for $10,000.
If this were to be approved, you'd have approximately $3,000 remaining.
Correct.
Okay, council, anybody have any questions?
Just one.
Mr.
How-
Carter,
How
go
much
ahead.
was approved last year?
They didn't have it last year because of COVID.
How about year
The
before
most
last?
recent year.
10.
The last time?
10,000, same
Okay.
amount.
Janet, where will they be holding the fireworks?
At the same location where we previously have done Gold Nugget Drive, which is the property behind Olive Tree.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Yeah,
Ms.
okay, so
McPherson.
we have 20,000, so you answered one of my questions, that it was 10,000 last time. Do these organizations, and one of them we didn't vote on, right? Because Taste of Villa Rica were in the Lions Club, and the Lions Club got, what was the amount,
$6,900.
Six. And
Approximately.
it doesn't look like the Arts Coalition is coming in. My concern is as we move forward, we've got 20,000. This is half of the grant. The other one took 7. Is there any understanding with these organizations that if one year, are they self-sustainable? Have they shown that they're self-sustainable at all? Are they, so that if all of a sudden the government, I hate for them to be totally dependent on the government, if all of a sudden we didn't have this grant, do they have the ability to even partially pull off their event? Do you have any idea?
That would be a question for that individual
Okay.
group.
Okay.
There's
Mr.
also a
Mr. Young.
application deadline of May 5th for all of these, so, you know.
Correct.
Right, I was assuming there probably wasn't much else in there competing, but there might be, and that's another concern. If there ends up being 4 or 5 entities that can qualify and show that they bring people downtown or encourage tourism, do those other entities have any way of thinking that they can still pull off their thing? I can talk to the Lions Club on that one, but.
I mean, we don't know until we receive the application, so that's up to them. We haven't heard from Arts Festival, so we don't know if they're having the event or not.
City manager, are you?
Okay. if
Are
there
you
no
waiving?
object-
He's.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Tom's.
The one thing that we could do would be to move the application deadline up a lot and evaluate all the requests at the same time. For instance, if we had a January 31st deadline for the year, then in the February or March meeting, we could make all the decisions at once, and we would know if we had more requests than 20 or less, for instance. So is that sort of where you're thinking? So where'd May 5th come from, Janet? Is that
That's the one we
tradition?
put on, yes, that's the tradition.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at that.
Yes, sir.
That's not a bad idea at all. All right, if there are no objections, I'm going to make this consent number 8, though.
No objection.
Let's move on to D5, 2021 Professional Services Agreement with RCS Productions. Go ahead, Janet.
This is our sound and lighting contract for 2021. We plan to move forward, full steam ahead, back to business as usual, starting June 12th. This contract is actually in the amount of $75,900. The actual budgeted amount is $89,500. We put down not to exceed that amount in case there are things that come up throughout the year that we have to add this or that we're not exceeding our budgeted amount. The proposed contract includes the 5 items listed on the agenda packet as well as the talent. I do pick out the talent, and I have Stephen Moore, who is from the production company, go and seek this talent out, which he did, and we have confirmed that talent based upon your approval.
Okay.
So we have a summer concert June 12th, the Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace Festival Saturday, June 26th, summer concert number 2. We're adding that this year in order to generate revenue. as the goal of Main Street has always been to generate revenue and give that back to the community via grants. So we've added a concert for July 24th, summer concert number 3, Saturday, August the 7th, and then our Gold Rush summer concert, Friday, September the 10th.
Okay.
Both contracts should be attached to the,
In the packet?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions from council?
and Stephen Moore is here from RCS Productions, should you guys have questions.
Very good. We'll see if we need them.
I think we agreed with
Mr.
this
Young.
in principle last year.
Yes, sir,
It's
we
just
actually
COVID.
just approved the contract when COVID hit. Correct.
All right.
But the cover sheet calls for 75, 9.
The actual amount of their contract is 75,900. However, the budgeted amount is 89, and we are keeping that as not to exceed. Should we have a situation where we have to add money to that? So we're just adding not to exceed what is the budgeted amount.
Give
of
us some examples on that, Janet.
We may have to add a piece of equipment. We may have to add another operator. We may have to add more lighting.
Sure.
Based upon what the talent is requesting, because obviously we only know the basic general idea of what they're needing.
That makes sense.
And so that we leave that money in there for that purpose.
So it's a not to exceed, but the not to exceed is actually the budgeted
Correct.
amount.
Yes,
I
sir.
understand. All right. Anybody else? All right. If there are no additional questions, we have reviewed this before, and I'll make this consent number 9 if there are no objections.
No objection.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to move on to Public Works. E1, surplus to sell. Mr. Griffin, Nick Griffin, come on up.
Good afternoon. I'll keep this fairly brief. Would you like me to go over each itemized item and explain each, or have you guys?
Well, let's just present it first, and
Okay,
we'll
I
see where
mean,
we're at.
these are surplus items that have been replaced, deemed obsolete, broken, beyond reasonable repair. There are 2 vans. There's a total of 5 vehicles that are not in operation anymore. They've been sitting. Some of them have been used as parts cars to repair other ones.
All right, that's enough.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, I could go on.
Anybody else have any? Does anybody have any questions on any of this for Nick? Yeah, I just don't see any reason to keep on. And if you'd have started naming off all of
I
those,
could have.
I think you were trying that.
I learned you guys.
But you have to leave it up to me to decide if we're going to go that fast.
Cassette recorders,
'Cause I'll
that's
let you read
almost
the
like
whole
selling
page.
one Allen wrench.
You're right. Transparency. That's what
All
we're
right, if there are no objections, I'm going to make this consent 10.
No objection.
All right, moving on to E2.
This next item.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Forklift purchase. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sorry. When we started procuring surplus items from the military, we did procure a forklift, which we had never had previous, and we've had that one for around 4 years, and it has been wonderful to have the ability to get in the truck and unload pallets. We receive more shipments and crates and things like that in the past couple of years than we ever have before, and we're receiving them from different departments. We have the only loading dock that's functional for a big tractor trailer to come in and deliver. So that being said, this forklift has done us a great deal of justice and work, and it's finally kicked the bucket. There are no brakes on it. The forklift itself isn't worth much. It's from the 80s. So I've gotten quotes to get it repaired, and I just don't think it's physically responsible to put that much money into a piece of equipment that's going to have issues later on, if not within the week. Say the week after we do put $5,000 into the brake systems and et cetera. Anyway, so there's a company called MDS Industrial that we've done. They had to do a wide range of work for us, and we've had a relationship for a little while. They also work on forklifts, and they rent them out. So we've been renting a Toyota forklift from them for about 2 months now. We haven't abused it, but we've definitely used it every day, if not most of the day on these past couple weeks while we've been doing work at Avani. Needless to say, I did do diligence and research on trying to find a comparable used forklift in this condition, and they're just not around. So they are giving us a great deal. So the cheapest kind of comparable forklift I found online, and it was out of state, was around $16,000. So we are going to get a 6-month warranty with this machine, and it is used, and that's pretty, that's nice right there. It shows their confidence in their equipment. So I'm asking you guys, if you would allow staff to purchase this, and then we would get the Clark forklift I actually put on that surplus. So if this is approved, I will sell that other forklift that we have, and we can probably get $2,000-3,000 for it.
So you're going to purchase the unit you've been renting, so you're comfortable with its performance and its maintenance levels and capability to serve the city?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Any comments from the council?
Yeah, it seems to make sense. 5,000 to repair, you get 2,000 or 3,000 off the other, so you're talking 7,000 or 8,000, and this one's 11,600. So,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, makes sense.
It's a good machine.
Are we done?
Yep.
All right, do we have another consent item?
Yes.
Anybody have any objections?
No
All
objection.
right, C11.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, let's move on. Pete Urbanos, Utilities, F1. Approval of professional services agreement with Gilbert, Harrell, Summerford, and Martin Law Firm. Go ahead, Pete.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This first item is, just as you described, the approval for professional services agreement with Gilbert, Harrell, Summerford, and Martin Law Firm. The purpose of this is to engage Judd Turner, who was a previous director for EPD. I don't know if you recall, several years back, I believe he was appointed by Governor Perdue to be the director at EPD because of his law background. And he was very instrumental in guiding the state through the tri-state water wars with Alabama and Florida. So we are asking to engage Judd Turner to help us with our search for additional water supply, for water supply planning, and also procurement. And the recommended amount for the initial engagement would be $5,000.
And that's a flat fee for this,
Flat fee
for this
for this
entire
initial.
scope of work. Okay. Council, does anybody have any questions?
I'm curious, just
Mr.
how
Carter.
did you zero in on this guy in particular? I mean, how'd you get the information? I mean, what led you to select him?
Because he was the EPD director.
That's your, that connections, okay.
That felt really good when he said
He
that. So.
hired the people down there, he managed them, he's got the knowledge of the inner workings.
So we've talked to him, he's ready.
I've only talked through our engineer, but, yeah.
He's more than
But
willing
he-
to come on board.
He's for hire to cities like us who have water issues, EPD issues.
I was just curious how you got a hold of somebody like this for little old Villa Rica.
He's,
Hey, we're moving up.
Yeah, basically, he retired or resigned or was replaced or whatever, and went to work for this law firm specifically to help people like us.
Okay.
All right, anybody else?
Just that the key words are to assist in our quest for water independence, so if we can find anybody that has those expertise and connections in places and can help us in that, that's a big
Yeah,
deal.
we're not gonna figure this out by ourselves. I've already determined that.
All right, if there are no objections, I'm going to make this consent number 12.
No objection.
The next item we will table in the regular session. Let's move on to F3, Connors Road Booster Pump Station Upgrade. Pete.
Okay, this is a request to upgrade the booster pump station and all the electrical controls for the Connors Road Booster Pump Station. This station has not been operational for approximately 13 years. Part of the upgrade is to upgrade the two existing centrifugal pumps that are in that station from 40 horsepower to 60 horsepower pumps with a different design head. With that capability, these pumps would be allowed to not only meet our peak demands when they occur, but also be able to fill the Mirror Lake tank, which the existing pumps do not have that capability currently.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right, if there are no questions, I'll make this consent number 13 without objection.
No objection.
All right, let's move on. These pump stations are easy for those who are listening. We have to rely largely on our professionals for these. F4, Trojan UV System Annual Maintenance Agreement.
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Pete.
This is to engage the manufacturer's representative, Temsco Incorporated. If you'll recall, we bought a full set of UV lamps for the West Plant to refit this. However, due to the loss of personnel that we've had over time, and now with the acquisition of new people on board, we'd like to get this annual maintenance agreement in place, not only to take care of the UV system, but also impart some of that knowledge to our in-house staff, so ultimately we can go ahead and do the maintenance ourselves in a safe and correct manner, according to the manufacturer.
Refresh my memory, when did we buy these bulbs?
6 months ago,
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know exactly.
And this is for the annual maintenance. This is an agreement for the annual
Yes, and it's-
maintenance on those.
Yes, and this was budgeted amount is for $4,800.
Okay,
The lifespan on UV lights are about 1 year.
Yeah, I remember Councilman Young talking about that a little bit. Does anybody have any questions on this maintenance agreement, though?
None.
All right, if there are no questions, without objection, I'll make this C14.
No objection.
All right, F5, approval of a work order 17003.13 with Brennan Jones to the Zion Lift Station on North Van Wert Road. Go ahead, Pete.
Okay. This is to enter into a work order with Brandon Jones for the design and construction oversight of the North Van Wert Sewer Lift Station. This will be one of the new lift stations that has been proposed with the thinking of doing more of a regional type lift station rather than just being specific to one development. And this would be put in to accommodate the Chapman communities that are the townhome development behind the First Baptist Church. It will also serve to eliminate the Waterford lift station. We can decommission it, put the flow on this lift station. It'll also provide an opportunity to give sewer capacity at the intersection of Van Wert and Highway 78 in that corridor right there. We also will get a savings by not operating the lift station at Waterford, and then also we have quite a bit of upgrades if we had hung on to Waterford. We're looking at probably in the neighborhood in the next couple of years $60,000 to upgrade that station, so we would be saving that amount of money as well. This approved work order to approve Brennan Jones Engineering Associates is for an amount of $212,375. And this was not a budgeted amount.
Okay. So this adds a lift station, but it takes a lift station away.
Yes.
We're going to spend roughly $60,000 upgrading the existing Waterford lift station in the next couple of years. Is that what you're saying?
So we won't have to incur that cost if we build this.
And we will spend $212,000 of unbudgeted money now to go ahead and put in this larger new lift station.
Correct.
All right. Council, does anybody have any questions?
I just mentioned that it also says Chapman Communities will be contributing $800,000 toward the project. That's part of that, when you come in, you help pay.
Correct.
Instead of having a lift station at every development, we have one that'll accommodate a number and they pay a portion.
Right, so this actually is an investment for the city.
Okay, my question is
Mr. Carter.
why Brennan Jones? Why him?
Well, let's let Tom answer that.
Yeah, we hired Brennan, I want to say, the end of my first year, and he has done, Pete helped me, 100% of our sewer design since then, maybe, to the point that after being in business for 13 years, he just hired his first employee because of us, and has hired the deputy director of Paulding County's water system to work for him because of us. So I mean, we have so much sewer work now that he literally can't keep up. For instance, you remember when we did the manhole project? Well, we did that project and we identified all the problems in the 250 manholes we looked at, and we still haven't done the work because we just can't get to it. So we're using Brennan on a work order basis, project by project, bringing each one to y'all for approval. At this point, we could bid it to somebody that doesn't know anything. You know, they could be great at doing sewer design, but he actually knows Villa Rica now.
So I think that's the larger point.
So that's,
It really
that's the
since,
hook.
Yeah, I get.
since you
that-
came here.
That's what I was looking for. It's because of his experience with Villa Rica. And,
Right.
And you're familiar with his work, so.
And not only is he doing all of our design, but he has put in place the platform that our GIS information sits on now. So in addition to helping us do new design and design, you know, fixes and stuff, we're also improving our data so that we have a better idea permanently of what's in the ground, how big it is, how old it is, what's the material, et cetera. So we're
Okay.
we're probably 10% of the way, you know, through the process, but eventually we keep doing this and we'll have a, you know, much better sewer system.
I just wanted the people out there to know why it is that we select a person and don't bid out $200-something thousand worth of work. And I fully understand, but they need to know it too.
Very good. Any other questions? All right. And really just to talk about that a little bit more, I mean, since Tom came here, he brought Brennan on board with a number of projects, and we've been paying him sort of an hourly rate, and from time to time, new projects come to the council. So to the extent that anybody's curious about that, he has done so much work for us that his institutional knowledge is just not something that we should to not consider when it's time to do another project. So that's the larger reason of why we're doing that. If there are no objections, I'm gonna make this C-15.
No objection.
All right, thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Let's move on to G, Human Resources, Stephanie Rooks. Number one, G1 is 2021 HR staff training. Ms. Rooks?
Yes, we are coming to the council to request a little over $2,000 to attend the GLGPA, which is the Georgia Association of Local Government Personnel, to attend the spring conference so that the HR generalist can begin her certification process through GLGPA, and that the other staff member needs the continuing education hours to retain her certification through GLGPA. This conference is held at Lake Lanier in the resort up there. It is a 3-day conference.
And is this discretionary training? This is required training?
This is, it's required for me because I need the continuing education hours to retain my certification. And then I would like her to begin her certification through GLGPA. So it's not required.
Okay, so though
but
it's not
very helpful.
required, it is highly recommended, I guess,
Yes.
by you, and I would assume by the city manager because
It's
it's
gonna
important.
create another requirement, is what it's gonna do.
Okay,
Tiffany
once it starts, then it'll
Tiffany
be.
goes through the certification. Once you get certified, then we're
But I'm going
on the
to
hook
ask
to keep
you,
her certified again.
You want this training to occur, though, for the
Yes.
benefit of the city and for the
Yes.
benefit of the department. All right, any questions from council? All right, I'm gonna make this C-15 if there are no objections. 16, sorry.
Thank you.
No objection.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, let's move on to H, Finance, Sarah Andrews. H1 is 2021 budget amendments. Hello, Miss Andrews.
Good afternoon.
Wearing a bunch of hats these days, huh?
I need a bigger.
We need to get you a different mask for each day.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
All right, these are budget amendments for our current fiscal year, 2021. So the first three have already been approved by council. This is just making the budget amendment. So the first one is adding the deputy city manager, and the second one is adding the public works director. Both of these positions were approved by council in a special meeting a couple weeks ago. And, well, sorry, the finance director position was, or the finance director was approved. So anyway, this all needs to be done. I'm Sorry, it's confusing.
Just take a breath. We're way
You've
over time
added the
already.
deputy city manager position, but you approved the finance director. Okay. These will be paid for through the sales tax increase that we have seen since the state did the correction back in August. We have seen an uptick in sales tax, which I will show you in the regular meeting. So we're paying for these through that increase. And the third item is the truck that was also approved by council at that special called meeting for the Public Works Director. So that is $32,970 paid for through the sales tax increase. The last item is in regards to the forklift that Nick just presented. We had $10,000 in savings, but the item was actually $11,650. So instead of paying for it out of two different line items, we're moving $1,650 from maintenance repair of equipment, and it looks convoluted because it has to go to a separate fund for capital. But in that one line item, he will have the $11,650 to make the purchase.
Okay, are there any questions on these budget amendments? All right, no questions. I'm gonna make this C-17 without objection.
No objection.
All right, H2, renewal with GERMA for property liability insurance for the period of May 1, 2021 to May 1, 2022. Go ahead.
All right. So yes, we submitted our application through GERMA for our liability. This is property casual insurance. It runs May 1 to May 1, so we need to bring this to council today. This quote is actually 10% higher than it was last year, so it's about $26,000 higher than it was last year. The letter that was sent to us said that overall they did increase by 6% for the entire pool, just based on loss rates and things. And that's what happened last year too. We increased 6%, but the whole pool increased 6%. This year we're increasing a little bit more than the actual pool is increasing, but they did give us some reasons why. First of all, our fleet has grown by 15% since our last renewal. So that's a big part of it. Our property has increased, so we had to add any increased property value. So for instance, City Hall renovations, this room was renovated. We added the playground equipment of $100,000. So we did have some property increase. Additionally, every time our overall budget or the payroll increases, that adds to this as well. They specifically look at the water and sewer budgets, and those have increased. So that's the big part of it. We've added employees. So anyway, that was their explanation for our increase.
That tells me that if we went up more than the pool, some other places went down from the pool, which means they didn't grow,
Possibly.
or they shrunk.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? All right, there are no other questions and no objections. I'll make this C-18.
No objection.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Tom, you're looking good with your new haircut, looking all cleaned up over there. I'll give you the floor because they're going to zoom in on you, I know.
Yeah, well, the governor said that we should go back to normal, right?
Okay, I've heard that 3 times now.
So,
All right.
retro haircut.
Number 1, proposal with Dan Reuter to assist with annexation and related services. Go ahead.
All right, so I've been here 3.5 years now, and I feel like I'm at the point where I can say to you that we are at least close to having a pretty good idea of what the problems are. And I also have a pretty good idea of what we can and can't do internally. Just like we brought the Judd Turner proposal to you for help with our water independence issue, I'm bringing you a recommendation to retain someone potentially on a long-term basis, paid hourly, to help us with a conglomeration of potential services related to annexation and acquisition. For instance, if we are successful in pursuing a second industrial park, we're going to have to acquire and annex. We just don't have time to do that, nor do we have the expertise. And Dan brings with him just a ton of experience that's outside of what I do and what most of the staff do. So you can see he did planning at Douglas County for 4 years, and then he went to ARC. He started the LCI program that we're in the beginning of. I just think he'll be a great asset to us because I'm going to use him, if approved, as a project manager. Just like we're allowing Brennan to work as a project manager and oversee surveyors and guys that are doing, geological testing and all that. It keeps me from having to do it. It keeps Bobby from having to do it. Keeps Pete from having to do it. In this case, this is going to save probably me time more than anyone if we're going to actually go after that second industrial park. We have a TAD on the books. If we can get that approved through the school system and the county, we have the opportunity to do some land acquisition out there before we really get more public about what we're doing. I don't have time to do that. I could give it to the mayor. He's in the business, but that's not exactly, what he signed up for. So we need somebody else to help us with that.
I didn't stop you yet.
Anyway, so, this is sort of philosophical for me, but we have an opportunity, even though we're outside of Atlanta, to bring in somebody that I think could have a long-term relationship with us. And again, at some point, I'm out of here, Pete's out of here, Bobby's out of here.
Hang on just a second. Is your mic on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just
and I just want to leave us in as good a shape as I can. Back to the Brennan thing. Brennan's 50, so I mean he could provide services here for 15 more years easy, and we don't get hit so bad. Because when I leave, I'm gonna take a lot of knowledge with me. Man, when Pete leaves, lots of knowledge.
He's gonna forget everything.
When Bobby leaves, all that plan review, everything that got done while he was here is going to go home with him. So here we go.
All right, council, does anybody have any questions on this?
Yeah, I got
All
one
right,
question.
Mr. Carter.
This gentleman worked for Douglas County, and we were blocked in annexing in that direction. What's his feelings on any annexation out on that side of the city?
It's funny you should ask that. So we have learned something about that restriction, and it goes back to the water system. The restriction came from Pete Frost, as I understand it. Yeah. And the restriction is specifically for the part of Douglas County in the Dog River Basin. And what that means geographically is south of 78. So I think we actually have an opportunity maybe to do something north of that if we, work the relationships and go through the process, because that's the Sweetwater Creek Basin. So it's a different watershed. But, Dan's going to come in here without any real preconception about that because he was there 20 years ago. So, I don't think that agreement's really going to influence him.
And that agreement is a 2007 agreement. Is that right, David?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it includes with it a map that does not just apply to south of 78. But I know you and I have talked about that.
Yeah, this is conversations that Ron's been having
right
recently. So
sort of ex parte, sort of outside of that. All right, Mr. Carter, do you have any, Ms. McPherson?
No, I just wanted to make sure, because he's coming from Douglas County, and I was back on the council when we ran through that process and ran into that problem with Pete Frost, so, okay.
Okay, Ms. McPherson?
Yeah, some of this a little bit more. Can y'all not all leave at the same time, though? Can you at least stagger it and cut us a little slack? I don't have a problem with this proposal. The only thing I was kind of curious about, is this something that would have been expected to maybe be provided through Carroll tomorrow at any time? Would that have been a service that maybe could have or should have occurred?
I've never done this to any significant scale anywhere I've worked. Annexation it's sort of rare.
Is that an answer
Well,
to
I mean,
my question?
yeah, I mean, that's not what chambers or economic development really does.
Okay.
You know, you sort of work with what you have, but
I think what you're really getting at is it wouldn't be necessarily in their scope, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't have at some point helped in some way.
yeah, it's not a service that they include when they talk about what they do.
Okay. Well, I get it. I
And
get
right-
what you're looking for
who,
here and
who
why.
would do it? You know, us and Temple, really. I mean, we're really the only
in terms
two
of
that
Carroll
are trying
County.
to do
Right.
industrial development and potentially annex. And
All right. Is there any other questions on this one? All right. If not, I'm going to, and no objection, I'm gonna make this C19. I think it's a good
No
idea.
objection.
It's certainly important to get that. We've talked about that for 2 years now. All right. Let's go to I2, renew lease agreement of the old library to Southeast Trans for 1 year. Tom?
All right, in the lease agreement with Steve Adams and Southeast Trans, we gave them a option for a 1-year renewal. As you've noticed, if you've been out on 61, their building hadn't even started going vertical yet. They've graded and put in some footings, but that's it. So they'd like to exercise that option. It starts, I think, July 1 and would run for another year. We're not getting any money out of this. You remember that we sort of horse traded the use of the building with them doing, 6 figures worth of internal improvements, which, we'll benefit from at the end of this. So
Did
I'm
we not
recommending approval.
Did we not add anything for that optional extension?
No, it's just we're getting like $1 a month or something, whatever the lease called for.
Okay. Well, I mean, you read the lease. I don't remember that part. All right. Are there any objections to this item? Shouldn't be.
No
All right.
objection.
C20. All right. Let's go to I3, approval of professional services agreement with EXP US Services, Inc. Tom?
Oh, boy.
I don't know if I like that.
No. All right, this is similar to these other two, so I'm looking for help. I see what we need to do. I don't think we can do it in-house. And the way this got started is we had the conversation about Punkintown and the speed limits. And I learned some stuff from that whole process that I didn't know. And basically what I learned is the driver's behavior determines the speed limit if you want to do radar. That's an alien concept to me and not intuitive at all. So I started asking myself, well, what do I do to change driver behavior? Because signs are irrelevant, as we've proven. So the only thing that I see that really makes a difference out there is a roundabout, or maybe 2 roundabouts. Well, we have one already in concept to replace the traffic light at Shoreline and Punkintown when we do Mirror Lake Connector. So that helps because those act as, speed reducing structures, speed calming. Thank you, Bobby. So I looked at the plan, and the plan for the East Bypass back in the day created a road that was almost straight, and it started south of the Shoreline traffic light and went all the way to the proposed North Bypass. So I talked to Grant, who's the engineer for District 6 for GDOT, and he said, you need to talk to Dwayne. And I said, okay, tell me what, So Dwayne, like Judd Turner, Dwayne worked for GDOT, retired, went to work for an engineering firm, was involved in the East Bypass design era. So we have gone back to Keck and Wood. We've gotten the engineering plans for the East Bypass and all the survey work. I've sent that to Dwayne. He's reviewed it. We've had a couple of meetings. And we have come up with a conceptual design that would move the addition of new lane all the way down to Old Stone at a roundabout. So you'd have a roundabout at Old Stone and Punkintown, and out of that, you'd have one road coming in from the south and two roads going out the north. One would be the existing, the other one would go to the north bypass. That does a couple of things. The big one is it saves us a bunch of money, right? The other is, even during construction, if we build the new one first, when we're improving the second one, we have a brand new detour route, right? So we could close the piece that runs beside the cemetery and not have a big uproar, because we'd have a new road parallel to it almost that people could use while we're improving that. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have a Y starting at Old Stone and Punkintown. So I threw all that at Dwayne. I said, okay, what's it gonna cost me to tell me if this can be done? So we got this proposal. He's got all of Kecken Woods work, so we don't have to pay for all that again. We don't have to pay for surveying again. I want to at least try this. And if it works, then we can do Punkintown for half what I was estimating. In addition, Dwayne thinks because of the accident that we are candidates for some LMIG safety money, which would further reduce our capital investment. So that's my proposal.
All right. So, and the next item is going to be more specific on a current project, sort of like Brennan.
That project.
I can't hear.
That project, yeah.
Yeah. So the next piece would be sort of like the Brennan Jones, the specific project. So I have, after you and I talked, I went back and pulled up my maps that I have, and my maps do not show that it starts that far south. So we'll probably need to talk more about that, but it doesn't have to be decided here. First, I think it's a good idea to engage with Dwayne. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and we already know we're going to do something over there on Punkintown Road. So I just want the council to know that you got this first piece here with whether or not we enter into an agreement. The second piece is a particular project, which would be task order number 1. So first, does anybody have any questions for Tom on this agreement?
Yeah, I don't
Mr. Carter.
I don't see any cost or price or anything like that on what it would cost us to use him.
His hourly rate schedule is the last page of the packet for the first item. So 260, 225, 195, et cetera, are the rates depending on who's doing what.
Which page?
Page 6 of that agreement. Yeah, go all the way to the back, Elisa.
Matthew, you're going to ask whether or not David has looked at the agreement?
All right, hold on. Let's let Mr. Carter finish.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's the fee schedule that we're agreeing to. And then
This part's the first two items on that, the 260 and 225. Is that him?
I'm assuming he's one of the first two.
Okay.
But we could have multiple people.
This is per hour, right?
Right, in different roles working on this.
Right. Thank you.
And then the next item would be the specifics of the first project.
But you're talking about C4, right?
Right.
All right, well, let me stay on C3. All right, any questions on the agreement?
Is this a de facto east bypass?
One of the things that I would like to do when we get through this conceptual design is to show it to Grant, because one of the things that I'd like to know is does it meet his expectation? Because there is the possibility at some point in the future, I think, that GDOT could take over the road as a state highway. So however we design it needs to meet that criteria. What we would be doing, though, by doing it ourselves is keep from having to meet all the federal, looking for snail darters and arrowheads and all that stuff you have to do if it's federal money. So the short answer is, I think yes, I think this could potentially become a state route. And if we design it right, I think it is going to continue to have truck traffic just like it does now. But if we put the two roundabouts in it, we would have broken it to such a point that you're going to be able to go back and do your 35-mile speed limit. The way we do that is we got to get the actual behavior out there below 45, which is about 6 or 7 miles an hour less than what we just measured. So if the two roundabouts move the speed from, say, 51 or 52 down to, say, 44, then we can have a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit and radar.
So, okay, so this is my frustration with us having our work session, and right on top of the work session where we have our voting meeting, so we don't have those days in between where I'm going, man, there's a lot more I want to understand about this. Because obviously the Eastern Bypass is a significant issue to a lot of people on that side of the city. Secondarily, the trucks are a significant issue. So you address that to some degree, but I want to know more about that too. Now, I've also spoken to a trucker, said, I'd be willing to get in a vehicle with you and tell you why your no truck signs don't work and how they could work better and where you'd have to place them to tell people how to get an out down Connors or something like that before it's too late. Because they get too far and then it's too late. They're down the road. And I figure, that may work and it may not work, but who knows better than truckers when they're driving around what works and what doesn't, so that might be something worth investigating. Obviously, I have a concern about that. If it's a state road, we lose all control. Now, we have state roads going all over our city that we have no say-so because they're state roads. Now, we're going to get back our Main Street out here, right? Because we'll have the bypass. We'll actually have some say. Hey, we can have a parade or whatever it is. We finally have some say. I want to save money. If there's safety money, I like that. See, this is a little bit more complicated than I realized when I reviewed it. But at the same time, I have concerns about the trucks. I have concerns about us not having the road, that it's then a state road, and we have no say about speed limit or anything. Once they have it, it's not ours.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, one
Ms.
other
Carter?
question. Even if you put a roundabout at Old Stone Road and shoot off of that toward the bypass and join up with it there, we still have to do something about Pumpkin Town up to Shoreline, do we not? So we still got to fix that
Well,
part
we're
of the
still
road.
going to fix the whole road.
Okay, but
The shoulders.
we would be
all that.
fixing that section of the road rather than, we would be putting in a new section of road to the bypass, but we would still have to fix.
We'd have to rebuild all the rest of it.
Okay.
Well, all right, Mr. Young, go ahead.
Why do we want to run radar on Pumpkin Town anyway? Other than sitting at the cemetery, a police officer would either have to be sitting in a private drive or in one of these small little roads when he would block the road so that traffic couldn't really get in or get out, depending on which side he was on. So where is he running radar?
Well, right now,
Up at the south end.
So, so what Tom just gave you was probably a little too much information in terms of idea, because we don't know what Dwayne is actually going to be able to recommend. What we're doing here is engaging in an agreement where we have a professional who is from GDOT who is going to tell us what we can and can't do and make recommendations. Tom has some ideas that could calm the traffic and some other things that he knows is the goal of the council, and he's just giving you some ideas of what might come out of this. So I wanted to do the service agreement first. If we can get past that, then we can take a little closer look at task order number 1. Is there any objection to making the approval of the professional services agreement consent number 21?
No objections to that one,
All right, so let's move on now. I'll make that consent number 21. Let's look at I-4, approval of task order number 1 with EXP US Services, Inc. Tom?
All right, this is a proposal to do the first project, which is a conceptual design. Sort of taking those ideas, what is actually practical? Does the creek make this not work? Do the shoulder elevation changes make this not work? Is there something we just don't know about that makes this not work? You know, we need somebody to tell us all that. So that's what's going to come out of this, is not engineering, just a conceptual design.
Okay, and that is task order number 1. Do you have any questions for the approval of task order number 1?
And how much was that? I'm sorry, I'd hate to go back to the list and look at it.
It's hourly.
Okay.
So I don't have a not to exceed, because I have no idea how many iterations of this we're going to do, because he and I are going to work on it, and Bobby will get involved, and probably some other people will get involved, and maybe Grant's office. So that's some set of
So
iterations.
you got no number at all in your head?
Then y'all get involved.
Blank check.
It's a blank check.
It's a blank check up to the point that we get tired of telling him, well, how about if we do it this way? How many times are we going to, I got no. But you can see, this is going to be an iterative process. I mean, because everybody's going to have, and at some point, it's going to become town hall meetings and public comment, and yeah, this conceptual design is really, really, really important to the city, and there's a lot of people that are going to have a say in this one, maybe more than any project since I've been here.
How long will it take him to do a conceptual design?
If we have this done in 6 months, I'm going to be shocked. Going all the way through staff, through y'all, through the public, I just think it's a long process. But if we come out of the end of this with something that we all like, I think we've really done something that we don't have today. And David has already told us we got to fix this road.
That's the problem. He told us a little while back, we gotta fix this road, so if we go another 6 months and we still don't have a fix for the road.
Oh, no. Then we would just start doing the engineering. So, yeah, we're a long way from fixing the road.
Well, I can
But we gotta-
attest that making sure that we do it right the first time
Can't do it but once.
is the right thing to do. So if it takes a little longer, then it's just going to take a little longer. Doing it right matters. All right, any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify. So 6 months before you think we would have like a final concept, but when do you think we might see a first draft, give or take?
Oh, just a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe
it's
end of the summer?
Because we've already given him all the Keck and Wood data, so
Okay.
you know,
Very
he's
good.
not starting from scratch at all.
What I would like you to do, and I'll ask for, make this consent in a few minutes, maybe you could make a note, and as part of your city manager's update, that you make a point to update us on this particular item each month. Okay? All right.
Mayor?
Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, what I'm finding troubling with the blank check is I feel like until this moment, I'm hearing some ideas like, well, we could do this and we could do the circle, and we could do. I'm finding it troubling to write a blank check when I feel like a really haven't been explained well, options we're gonna look at, and what is our ultimate goal. So I've heard, well, it could be this, or it could be that, but we might do this, but we might do that, and I'm struggling with that part.
That's why you do conceptual design. I'll tell you how I got here. I built a stage and a courtyard in Fairburn, and I bid the whole thing. Soup to nuts. Idea all the way to construction. Well, that leaves it up to the bidder to decide how many hours to put in there for conceptual design. And I'd never done one, and he'd never done one. And so I blew through his hours for conceptual design in like a couple of weeks. But it took me forever to decide how to design, what the concept was for this thing. So since then, I did the aquatics facility in Fairburn, and I learned from that first time. So I did not let the engineer get past conceptual till we had a conceptual design. Then I bid it. And I bid the design instead of letting all of that get lumped into a thing. So I think that the way that I'm approaching this is the cheapest way of doing it, and the only way that we can all agree. Otherwise, if we start doing engineering before we agree on all the conceptual components of this, we will spend a fortune on engineering and re-engineering and re-engineering, which is just a waste of money. But it's what engineers want to do. Like, if you go to a surgeon and ask him to fix you, he's going to recommend surgery, right? If you go to an architect, he's going to give you architectural drawings that are expensive. If you go to an engineer, you're going to get engineering drawings. All I want is concept.
Okay, so then the last thing I want to say on this so that we don't forget is from where everything I'm hearing, we're talking, well, if it got done in this amount of time, that would be amazing, or it's probably this far out. That does nothing about the way the driving is going on that road for a long time, so I don't want us to forget. Shoreline, well, that'll slow people down when we have a roundabout. Well, we have no idea when that's going to happen, so I don't want us to lose the idea that we need to do whatever it is to make it safer that until we can get to the big fix. That's it.
Yeah, one of the things that we would like to do this spring, or maybe even in the summer, you remember we had Carroll County come out, we worked on the shoulders, but we did it with dirt, and it didn't work well. I mean, trucks rutted it and whatever. So we would like to try that again this year, but maybe use a different material. So we're gonna try something else to improve the shoulder safety because of the drop-offs.
And if we'd still maybe consider those light-up signs that tell you.
I think Bobby's done some homework on that.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on this item?
one
Mr.
more.
Carter.
This Mr. Comer, is he going to be spending full time when he's doing the work for us? I noticed he's running an engineering firm, so he's got other projects going.
Yeah, he's going to be the project manager, and I've already met one of the designers. So there's a guy named Ryan that's going to be working on the design.
He's just overseeing it, and this other guy's doing the work.
project.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Young.
We had to approve Wesley's $445 for training. 2 hours of the principal on this would blow through that. I have a problem with a blank check. I could understand
But,
not
Tom,
to exceed,
yeah, I mean,
but I have
put
a
a
problem
number
with a
on
blank
it,
check.
because at the end of the day, you have the authority to spend $10,000 regardless. What amount of money do you feel like is not to exceed? I don't mind.
Put $5,000 on it
Okay,
like we did
fine.
the other one. And
I mean, it's not, the whole idea here is not that Tom is just out there spending city money.
Oh,
He's
no,
gonna
I
look
trust
at this and
Tom. I
watch
just
it
saying,
as we move through the.
it's
Hang
not-
on.
It's not my money.
Hang on a second. As we move through the process, so if you want, I'm good with it, a not to exceed amount of money.
yeah, 5's good.
Okay.
Yeah, one
Well,
thing
then we'll
to-
take it up in regular
One
session.
thing to remember also, you're using the words blank check all the time. This is a contract that's terminable at will. So if at any point that you believe that you're not getting good value for your money, you just stop it. You can stop payment at any time.
All right. So we will hold this item over to regular session, and we'll, and whoever makes the motion, please do not to exceed it. Or can we do that here, David, or no?
No,
All right,
not
that's
here.
fine.
You got to do it in the meeting.
That's fine. All right. A not to exceed $5,000. Okay. Let's move on to I-5, proposal by TRC and Bob McGinnis to obtain easements for sewer line installation. Go ahead, Tom.
All right, we would like to make a change to the Shoreline lift station and turn it around so that instead of pumping into the gravity line that feeds the north plant, we would turn it around and pump to Cleghorn, which goes to the west plant. We currently are at about 80% capacity at the north plant, which is scary. It's a small plant. We've got 20% capacity available, which is not much at all. If we turn Shoreline around, we'll improve that at least to 60% from 80%. And that will buy us some time to decide what to recommend to y'all to do for the north plant. But we have a proposal from Mirror Lake to build another 1,000 houses and potentially 500 multifamily units out there. Plus, there's some other land south of Connors, this unbuilt, that also would go to the north plant. So we've got to make north plant improvements, but in the meantime, we'd like to move Shoreline to Cleghorn. To do that, we've got to cross 4 pieces of property. And I'd like Bob, who has been doing our easement work, to start on that and see if he can get those 4 so that we can get that one going.
All right. Any questions for Tom on this item? All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to make this C-22 if there are no objections.
No objection.
Thank you. All right. I-6, approval of a revised intergovernmental agreement. It's the IGA with Carroll County Tax Commissioner. Go, Tom.
All right. I don't really know a whole lot about this, to tell you the truth. I got a email from Carroll County indicating that they wanted to refresh the agreement. The rates are not changing, but they wanted a new IGA in place to go along with the changes that have occurred, I guess, at the elected level. Assessor, I know, is new. Tax commissioner, I don't know how long they've been in office, but you've got I think you've got the new document. I think you've got a red line, if I remember. You got a red line version, so I'm basically trusting them. David's looked at it, so if David and Stacy are okay with it, then I'm.
Well, that's my question, David.
Yes, I've looked at it, and it tracks the state law. I mean, this is what the state law is, regardless of the agreement, but they do want to try and document it.
So it's just a matter of really housekeeping,
Right.
updating the agreement. All
Correct.
right, council, any questions?
I just had one. They specify $1 and then they specify $8, but they specified for the same thing. So what's that about?
What sections are you looking at?
Section 3, compensation.
The dollar goes to the commissioner and the 8 goes to the county.
That's
I think.
right, yeah. That's the state law. It provides that the tax commissioner gets to keep $1 of the money that we're paying personally.
Okay,
And-
he gets $1 of the 8, or he gets an extra $1?
I believe that it's $1 out of the 8.
Okay.
That's how it has always
Isn't that
been.
right?
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's
I
$1
think it's
out of the
$1
8.
out of the 8.
All right.
Yeah, Mayor, just.
Yes, ma'am.
Just
Ms. McPherson.
just a little clarification on that, in case you ever want to go to the Capitol and lobby. That dollar that they make, they already get a salary. So that dollar they get per parcel can go right in their own pocket. It has been severely abused, and AJC has done a number of articles over the years, even where they have the power to, and this is not to say anything about our tax person, but it has been abused in the state in certain counties. And so they're getting, aside from being paid and their whole job is based on taxpayer money and their job is, they're getting all those dollars in their pocket additionally. So
When you say it's been
They need to
abused,
change
tell
the
me
law.
what that means.
There were some counties where, based on what, there was certain decision-making that could occur in the tax office, that decisions that were made by the tax commissioner would cause them to make more money off these properties.
Isn't
It just
fixed
can
at
really have a
$1?
conflict, huh?
Isn't it fixed at $1 per parcel?
It is, but there were certain decisions that they could make that were to their benefit, and that's why it has hit the AJC over. It's really not a good practice. You've got somebody using an office, doing a certain job, they get paid a salary, and then on top of that, that money that you're paying additional does not, it could go to the office, but it can go straight in their pocket. I don't know too many bureaucratic positions in the state that can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like this agreement, it does go to the tax commissioner's operating budget. But
It
that's
can.
well, that's what this agreement, in Carroll County, or at least in this agreement, that's what the state sets out, so. But I did see that, I know that report that you were referring to.
Okay.
I remember that.
All right. So are there any other questions on the agreement? If not, I'm going to make this C-23 without objection.
No
Consent
objection.
number 23. All right. Anybody else have anything? Okay, I'm going to go through the agenda, create this consent agenda. Let me finish that, and if at the end anybody has any objections or any clarifications, we'll do that. And then I'll take public comment if there are people here for that. I don't have a sheet yet. Okay, so we will make consent number 1, the mayor reappointment of Janice McGehee to the Cemetery Commission, a term of 04/01/2021 to 03/31/2024. Consent number 2, appoint Doug Lang to Historic Preservation Commission. Consent number 3, appoint Angelia O'Neill to the Historic Preservation Commission. Consent number 4, revision to grass height restriction as pertaining to the nuisance code for the city of Villa Rica. Consent number 5, approval of items for auction. Consent number 6, 2021 Pine Mountain Gold Museum staff training. Consent number 7, 2021 Main Street staff training. Consent number 8, 2021 Community Development Grant Disbursement, Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace Festival. Consent number 9, 2021 Professional Services Agreement with RCS Productions. Consent number 10, surplus items to sale. This is from Public Works. Consent number 11, forklift purchase. Consent number 12, approval of professional services agreement with Gilbert, Harrell, Summerford, and Martin Law Firm. Consent number 13, Connors Road Booster Pump Station upgrade. Consent number 14, Trojan UV System Annual Maintenance Agreement. Consent number 15, approval of work order 17003.13 with Brennan Jones to design lift station on North Van Wert Road. Consent number 16, 2021 HR staff training. Consent number 17, 2021 budget amendments. Needed a number on that. Consent number 18, renewal with GERMA for property liability insurance for the period of May 1, 2021 to May 1, 2022. Consent number 19, proposal with Dan Reuter to assist with annexation and related services. Consent number 20, renew lease agreement with Old Library to Southeast Trans for 1 year. Consent number 21, approval of professional services agreement with EXP US Services, Inc. Consent number 22, proposal by TRC and Bob McGinnis to obtain easements for sewer line installation. And consent number 23, approval of revised intergovernmental agreement, the IGA, with Carroll County Tax Commissioner. Does anybody see anything different on the consent agreement, consent agenda?
Looks good.
All right, let me go back to, just for clarification for the city clerk, we will have a public hearing on, okay, so council, just make note, on B1, we're gonna ask in the regular session to send that back to P&Z. B2 is going to be a public hearing. B3 We'll also have a public hearing. B5, we're asking to table that. Somebody make a note. Okay, we'll bring back B6 and 7. They are for discussion only. I'll let Chris present those again. D1, leave that on the agenda. We'll see if there's an application there. What else do I have? F2, we're going to table this. Somebody make a note. And that looks like, okay, and make sure you bring back I4. We will put a not to exceed on that motion. All right, does anybody see anything different?
No.
If not, I'm going to move on to public comments. Okay. I'm going to call the folks here who are on this list. I'm going to let you come up here to the podium. We'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Somebody's going to put a timer up. I want to ask you to keep your comments on a professional level, not accept any comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll get a warning. If you deviate a second time, you'll be leaving. Only one person speak at a time, and please, no comments from the audience. This needs to be an orderly process. Number 1, Hunter Hyde. Is that person still here? All right. Number 2, Ricky Wilson. Mr. Wilson, come forward, sir. State your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes over there.
I'm going to defer
Defer.
to Hughes Ray.
Hughes Ray. Aaron McCullough. All right. Mr. McCullough, state your name and address for the record, and go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Aaron McCullough. Our address is 6554 East Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia. Thank you for hearing us. I am specifically here about item B2 on the agenda. We did not come to the podium at that time, so we apologize for that. But we did hear the discussion about the potential for placing a condition upon that variance request. And philosophically and conceptually, we don't oppose that. We would like to request that either we can meet with appropriate staff or council to work out what that condition and the limitations of that may be prior to the council meeting. I know that we are short on time there, but we would like to do that so that we make sure that it is mutually beneficial to both us and to the city as well.
All right. Are you finished? All right. Have at staff
sir.
as soon as we're done here. All right. Is that both of y'all?
Yes, sir.
All right. Because you're both on here. Lauren Layer? That was the okay. All right. That's the end of my list. Is there anybody else here who did not sign in who would like to give public comment? All right. None of that. Then I'll close the public comments portion. Y'all are welcome to talk to staff in this short period of time here. And Mr. City Attorney, you have anything? No, sir. City Manager? Don't. Just leave it alone. All right.